Another week, another massive video game launch. How do you have time to watch shows like this? There's so many games to play. Star Wars Battlefront, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. Is there too much Star Wars? Could there possibly be such a thing? Do either of those games hit the mark? We're going to talk about all that and why I'm a lifelong Poke-maniac right here, right now on Dave's Save Point. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Dead on Dave, and welcome to episode 2 of Dave's Save Point, the show where I just talk about everything that's going on in my life, in my world, and why I love video games so very, very much. Now, it shouldn't come as a big shock. The only thing I really want to talk about is Fallout 4. I'm 2 weeks in, and I still can't stop playing it. It's an amazing game. It's one of the greatest games I've ever played in my life. But don't worry, I'm going to put the brakes on the Fallout 4 talk right there, because Lord knows, I'm sure you've heard enough. But maybe you haven't. Fallout 4, no, I'm kidding. Go play Fallout 4 and find out for yourself. No, we're here to talk about a few things today. Really, let's start with Battlefront. Star Wars Battlefront has been released to a very, very wide variety of reviews. Now, the overwhelming opinion, and from everything that I've been able to see, and I've watched a lot of gameplay, haven't been able to get my hands on it yet because I'm just a poor kid. Well, actually, 32. 32. But I'm still poor. And I don't have a console. No, I play all my games on Steam, so I'm kind of waiting for that to happen. And it doesn't look like it ever is, so I may never play Battlefront. But that might not be such a bad thing, because here's the reality. After 32 years on this planet and being a lifelong Star Wars fan, it's one of my great passions in life. I have a few. Well, see, I'm one of those people. I'm passionate about many things. I love wrestling. I love Star Wars. I love video games. I love baseball. There's so many things that I'm very, very truly passionate about. Movies, television. I love everything pop culture wise. It's just, I need it. It's like heroin. Put it in me, you know? It's one of those things. And, yeah, I'm a whore about it. Who gives a shit? Sue me. Anyway, but through all the years of playing all the video games that came out with the Star Wars name on it, there's been so many. None of them have really hit the mark for me. And it's not that they're all particularly bad games. Like Force Unleashed is a badass game. Badass. And the second one is pretty good too. They're both really, really fun games. But there's always something that seems to be missing, whether there's gameplay lacking, like if you could get a better game in a genre, and the only reason why you're really playing this is because of it's a Star Wars game, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's the whole idea behind marketing, and I get that. But the novelty seems to wear off very quickly on a lot of these Star Wars games, and Battlefront seems to be no different in that. And what I mean by that is it seems like a lot of people have looked at it and go, wow, there's full immersion of Star Wars, and that's fantastic. But wait a minute. Now, I've been playing for a couple hours, and God, this is a first-person shooter. Sucks. There's just, you start noticing how clunky things are and how much better the whole first-person experience is done on other games. Now, there seems to be a lot of really big positive things about this game, but they all seem to be related to the immersion of being a Star Wars character, which is a great thing, I guess, you know, in a lot of ways. But it doesn't seem to take long for virtually everybody who plays to kind of get tired of the repetition. The novelty only, you know, keeps you going for so long, the nostalgia. And I think that's because Star Wars is such an expansive universe, and there's so much going on in that realm, and there's so much to love about it, that really, if you need your Star Wars immersion, you can just go watch Star Wars and it still does it for you. Nothing kind of replaces that feeling throughout all the video games, and I don't think Battlefront's any different. And when you throw into the fact that at its heart, it's kind of a clunky first-person shooter, it makes it a little bit more difficult to really defend the game. Now, that being said, I could see myself losing many hours, just flying around Hoth and taking down AT-ATs and the Autots and all that, the Landwalkers and all these things. I could see myself doing it, flying around in TIE fighters and trying to shoot down the Millennium Falcon. All of these things, I could see myself doing it. I fantasize about myself doing it. But here's the thing, I don't see myself doing it very long. I remember I played Rebel Alliance, man. I played the shit out of that game. And I just remember there was a time when I was playing it and I wasn't having a lot of fun playing the game. It was more about just like in my head, I'm like playing, and then in my head I'm like, Star Wars, suddenly Star Wars, because that's all I do. It's just like that was the novelty. It was like Star Wars, 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 lightsaber up your ass. That's kind of what was going on in my head. It's not lightsabers up your butt. Nobody should do that. That's a health hazard on many different levels, and that's certainly not a way that one should check one's prostate. Not a good idea. But I mean, there's all these things going on as to why you're immersed in the game, but it has really nothing to do with the first-person shooter mechanics of it. And I think that is an inherent problem with this game, because as big of a genre that Star Wars has become in and of itself, just aside from sci-fi, I think when you match that with another platform that is in and of itself a huge thing in and of its own, like a first-person shooter. A first-person shooter in this day and age has become like this sacred thing, thanks to like Halo and all the Call of Duties and the modern, all that stuff, People are like, man, first-person shooter, first-person shooter, first-person shooter. If you mix it with Star Wars, it's got to be great. Yeah, but that first-person shooter is still at its heart got to be a really good first-person shooter, and I think that's where it's lacking. The repetition, the constant, it just gets very repetitive, and that's what I keep reading over and over and over. Now, it's hard to say definitively because I haven't gotten to play it, but I have watched enough different types of players to kind of see the same things over and over and hear the same things over and over. And while it's not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, this is one of those things where if we were still in the world of rentals or GameFly is a perfect service for this game. That seems to be the best. Like, if there was ever a game that you would sign up for GameFly for one, it would be that. It would be this, because this is not a game that I see people wanting to own forever. You're going to play it for a week and then you're going to put it on your shelf, and then you may never touch it again. Get GameFly. I mean, there you go. Boom. Problem solved. Does GameFly even still exist? I have no idea. I used to use GameFly. I live in Germany. I used to use it, and they actually would send me the games, which was incredible to me. But it would take 2 weeks to get here, and then another 2 weeks to get back. But I bought so many games off GameFly because you'd get the game, and you'd have it, and then while you'd have it, eventually it would like go on sale, and so you'd own it for like a few weeks, and you're paying your $10 a month for the two games that you have, and then you see that the game that you have that's still relatively new just dropped to $20 because it's your used copy, and you're like, boom, I bought it, and that happens. And then they sent you the damn case. I loved it, but then they changed their website because for international people, and I can't see the inventory of games anymore. No, they want me to write them a list of the games I want, and then they'll send me. I'm like, what is this, 1997? You want me to actually write? No, I want to be able to see an icon and hit send. I'm lazy and entitled, and I want my game, you some of my bitches. So I canceled my subscription. So I don't even know if it still exists. But if it does, and you have it, Battlefront seems to be the perfect game for that. All right. While we're on the subject of Star Wars games, let's go ahead and smoothly segue to another Star Wars game, because another one's been released, and that is Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. And this is launched on your phones, your cell phone devices and all that, your iPhones and your Galaxies and all that stuff. It's on Android and all that. And it seems to be definitely the cheaper, but maybe the better product of the two, because it's a turn-based game. You can play PvP, you can play against other people, and you get all the characters that you've always loved, 60 at launch, and you get to play in all the environments. But I think it does a better job of being a core video game of its genre, and better than Star Wars Battlefront, at least. Where Battlefront fails as a first-person shooter, it seems, and I haven't really gotten to play too much of this yet, it seems to me that Galaxy of Heroes really does succeed as a turn-based game. And that's really exciting to me. I like the idea of it. Now, I'm not great when it comes to really getting on the phones. I'm an old crotchety man, 32 years old, and I'm like, I don't want to play my video games on my phone. And in fact, I still have Fallout Shelter sitting on my phone. And if there are two games that could get me to want to play more handheld games on my phones, I have no problems picking up a Game Boy, though. Odd as that shit is. Go friggin' figure. I'm very stuck in my ways. Like, I couldn't even get in the PS Vita situation. I'm like, no, it's not a Game Boy. I'm not playing any other mobile devices. But if there's any two series that could get me going, you would think it'd be Star Wars and Fallout. And thus far, neither one have just made me want to pick up my phone and play them on there. And I think it's because inherently they both have the same appeal as far as their source material. I still get all my jollies from watching Star Wars. If I need my Star Wars immersion, I'll just watch Star Wars. I'm 32. I've had to have seen A New Hope 1,000 times. And I'm probably not exaggerating. Because about 3 years ago, I had a challenge with my wife that I could watch Star Wars every day. Episode 4, every day for a year. And I won that bet. I am not kidding. I did it. 365 days in a row, I watched Star Wars. And then on the 366th day, guess what I did? I watched Star Wars. It's because I love that movie. And every time I watch it, no matter how many times, I just continue to find new things. And as stupid as that sounds, it's just, whether it be something out of place that I never noticed before, or just an inflection in a dialogue, or a lesson that it's just all kinds of things. That's how much I love Star Wars. So at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I could play this game on my phone, or I could just go watch Star Wars. 10 out of 10 times, I'm just going to go watch Star Wars, take my 2 hours, and then I'm good. I'm filled up with the Force, and I don't need to spend any more time in the video game world as far as Star Wars. I can spend my video game time in much other places. And I think Fallout has a similar problem, at least for me. If I want a Fallout experience, before it would be I would just go play New Vegas, or I'd play Fallout 3. I don't need to play Fallout Shelter. Now, Fallout 4, fuck a Fallout Shelter. That's where my head is. I'm like, yeah, I don't give a fuck about Fallout Shelter. I got Fallout 4. I'll build a shelter in Fallout 4. Now, I'm not playing that. That's where my head has been. So, as appealing as the game looks, if you're a turn-based type of guy and you love Star Wars, it's obviously something that you want to give a shot to. There's no question about that. So I would highly recommend you go at least check it out, because it seems to succeed as a game where Star Wars Battlefront seems to only succeed as being Star Wars, if that makes sense. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about Star Wars Battlefront or Galaxy of Heroes if you've played. And you know what? On top of that, not only do I want to hear what you think of those games, I want to know, what is your favorite Star Wars game of all time? Hit me up in the chat below, or go ahead and tweet me at my Twitter at DeadOnDaveV. Go ahead and tweet me there, DeadOnDaveV on Twitter, and I'll respond to you, because I'm fat and I have nothing to do. All right, so let's get to a few quick video game news. I have news for you in video game. A lot of people are like, Dave, get WWE 2K16 and play, even though that I have yet to upload one gameplay footage. I just don't do it because I'm so boring the way I play. Nobody wants to watch me play video games. Trust me, it's horrible. But I'm going to do it eventually because that seems to be what people want. And with WWE 2K16, as soon as it comes out on Steam, I'm going to be uploading videos. I'm thinking about uploading my first Fallout video very soon as well. But I hate editing. I hate doing the work. I just want to talk in front of a microphone. That's all I want to do. But what's cool about WWE 2K16 is if you are excited about it and you love to play it, well, guess what? The first DLC to expand your moveset is now officially out. That's right. And this is kind of cool, the fact that there is new moves that you can play. Now, that is exciting to me, the fact that they're releasing new moves. So now the gameplay, the things that you see over and over, all the movesets, things that have always previously gotten stagnant, they're really trying to address that. And if they continue to do this, this is a game that could take on a life of its own for a very long time. The new move pack that has already been previously announced, it adds 30 new moves to the game. That's a significant amount of moves. You know, now you have the corner Inseguri, the Regal Kata, and 360-degree Senton. Or 630-degree Senton, excuse me. There's all these new all these new moves that now you can add to your created character if you want to make your perfect version of a wrestler who's not in the game, which with 130 goddamn people in the game, it's kind of hard to think of who's missing, but I'm sure there is. Now this gives you more options, and let's just face it, it gives you something else to see when you're watching all these move animations. I mean, that's pretty cool, and there's so many others. The Avalanche Slam, the Sidewinder Suplex, and a Dragon Sleeper, all of these moves that have been released, pretty cool stuff. And the fact that it's only $4, not such a bad thing. I am not a fan of getting the season pass. I'm just not. I don't like buying a game for $60 and immediately shelling out $25 for a season pass. It drives me nuts. I understand that it's inevitably a better deal. It's always a better deal and you should get it, but there's just something inherently about it. Like, really? You want $85 at launch, you greedy sacks of shit? Really? Suck my Goagatha. A shit demon, if you got the reference, huh? That's a good movie reference. Though anybody who tells me what that reference is from, you earn my respect. But $4 just for the opportunity to play 30 new moves, I think that for some people that's going to be very much worth it. I know it would be for me, and I'm probably going to get it as soon as I am able to on Steam. So pretty excited about that, especially considering when you really think about it, that a lot of the reviews for the game outside now, player review seems to be very high for WWE 2K16. Critical review, not so much. Will this add to some of the enjoyment of those critical critics? Who knows? But let me know if you guys have gotten the new moveset and tell me what you think of it. Does it add anything to the game for you? Or does it just seem a little bit forced and contrite at this time? Let me know. I want to know. I want to know what makes you happy. In a little bit, I don't know. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. In a little bit of news that's kind of going under the radar, but I think will really get a lot of people excited. Sony has very, very quietly and just stealthily given something that a lot of people have wanted. Now, it's kind of funny that when Sony allows backwards compatibility or emulation into its vaunted software, hardware, the PlayStation 4, nobody really talks about it. Sony certainly doesn't make a big grandiose deal about it and all of that. But when Xbox released backwards compatibility for the Xbox One, they made a huge deal about it because Xbox One so desperately needed good press. And even that they seem to fuck up and not make people happy. Sony, on the other hand, just really quietly releases it. Now people are just kind of noticing, oh, hey, wait a second. I could play PS2 games. This is exciting. So I think that's something that kind of differentiates the success and the failures of these two platforms. I mean, these two consoles. So I don't know. It's pretty interesting. Now, I did say a scary word in there for a lot of hardcore gamers and geeks, and that's emulation. Because whenever you use the emulation feature on these consoles, there does seem to be a drop-off in graphics, and for obvious reasons, because you're not rendering them in the best possible way, because it's just the way that the software reads it. Emulation is a little bit different. But from all the screenshots that's been released and a lot of the things that people are saying about the process, it doesn't look that bad, and it's a drastic improvement from the graphics of how it was back in the PS2 days. So it's kind of cool, and it's definitely something that I think is going to appeal. Look, the reality is, and it's kind of been proven, that backwards compatibility only really does placate about 5% of the gaming fan base. And that's because it's a novelty. It really is. Because the fact is, if you wanted to still play those old PS2 games, and that's what you really cared about, and that's where you were going to focus the majority of your gaming time, you would have never moved on from the PS2. Subsequently, you would have never moved on from the Xbox 360. You would have never moved on from the Xbox One, the Nintendo, the Atari. You'd never move on from them. And if you want to play these games, it's so easy to get an emulator on your computer that it almost seems just blah for a console to really focus on backwards compatibility. It just doesn't seem to be the... Now, look, for the last generation, absolutely. Like, I believe PlayStation 4 and Xbox One should definitely be playing 360 and PS3 games. There's no question in my mind about that. But when you're talking about going back farther, I just think there's so many options for really good emulation on your computers that it kind of makes the whole feature just feel stagnant and a throw-in and a novelty, and you're not going to spend that much time playing them anyway. Now, look, I understand that there is a segment of the population, I think a smaller one that people want to admit, that just play old-school games. And to those of you, I salute you. And that's a great thing. But I think it's a dying, segmented population. And it's not mainstream enough to make a huge deal about it. So I take my hats off to Sony for acknowledging that and understanding. So smart move by Sony on both regards. One, releasing it and letting it happen. And two, not making a big friggin' deal about it. When you're winning, you can do that. And they are clearly winning. So the last news story I want to talk about, I want to harken back into a deep, dark shame of mine. And I want to talk to all you guys out there. And you know who you are. You have a cardboard sword in your hand. You're probably wearing a cape. You got Doritos somewhere around you. And you're waiting for your clan to show up. Yes, I'm talking to D&D role players. That's right. I'm talking to you. Why? Because I used to be one of you. When I was a kid, D&D was the most exciting thing in the world to me. The fact that... Now look, I've been through different stages of my life where I was really athletic and hung out with the popular athletes and stuff. And I've always seemed to transition back and forth between the nerds and everything because that's what I am deep down. I've just had a few times in my life where I was able to do athletic things, so I was cooler. But I would never turn my back on my gaming and my nerd heritage because I love that stuff so much. I love the culture. I love how people treat each other in the nerd community. Not online, of course, because we're all a bunch of bag of dicks online. But I mean in general, the gamers tend to really embrace each other because we know how it feels to be outcasts, And I don't think that becomes ever more apparent than in the D&D world, any tabletop gaming really, but really RPG. I mean, I was surprised when I was in the Army. I was in the Army for 10 years. It shocked me how many soldiers were D&D people. So many. And I understand for me, there was more because I was in a communications. I'm a commo guy. 25 uniform, 31 uniform. If you're military inclined, you know what I'm talking about. Communications, radios, phones, computers. That's my world. If I had a circuit, I was able to fix it. That's what I did, maintain it and all that good stuff. And I was in a unit that had a lot of those guys in it, so it was a bunch of nerds. So it shouldn't have come as a big shock that there were so many of us who wanted to play. But it's not always easy to stay in touch, especially as you get older, to stay in touch with people in your group, you know. And now, finally, after all these years, and you would think that something would have came along much sooner, you can play with anybody you want across the globe, because Dungeons and Dragons has finally gone virtual. And I'm not talking about a game, Dungeons and Dragons, where you play as Drizzt and all that stuff, and you go through the Forgotten Realm. No, I'm talking about a virtual tabletop with a very basic map and all of your die and everything, and it's joint venture between Wizard of the Coast and all that stuff. It's very cool, and it's a real thing, and it's unbelievably excited. And it's called Alt Space VR, and it's made it very simple. And not only simple, but it's made it like it's the same thing as playing in your basement or playing in your room, wherever you played, at kitchen table, wherever. It seems to have really done a good job of completely mimicking that experience, but taking it online. Now, the only question is playing it with your friends online going to have that same feeling as playing it in person? But the fact that you could the way you can gesture, the way you could talk, everything, because there's TeamSpeak and all that good stuff, it does seem to be a really smart idea, and it seems to be working. Now, let me give you a quick little run-through of exactly what goes on. You tell me if this is quite similar to what you would be doing in real life. First, it's very simple. You get your Alt Space VR, and then you start a campaign. You name it, pick a start time, and get a link that you send to your friends to bring them to a private tavern where you can play the game. Next, you set up what's called the Battle Grid, a virtual table for the miniatures, terrain tiles including cities, dungeons, and wilderness, and graph paper. Yes, there's virtual graph paper, people. Come on. You could drag pieces onto it from the end of the table, including tiles for movement and also for UI items like flipping pieces. Players, meanwhile, can create a character sheet or choose an official one, and then can roll dice to attack monsters or make saving throws as the game progresses. It really does seem to capture everything that you do on a table, but just done by doing this, and how exciting is that? I think that if they have achieved what we've all been wanting, this could be a $1 billion idea, because people still love D&D. And the funny thing about it is, if you've never played D&D, if you get dragged into it, I bet you're going to like it. I bet you if you give it a chance, you're going to really dig the experience, because it's so much fun. It's so much fun to lose yourself into a character. Now, it's not for everybody. It really isn't. But I think this is a really cool idea that a lot of people are going to love. So I think you should check that out. Give it a try if you love RPGs, man. Especially playing live tabletop version. Dungeons & Dragons Alt Space VR seems to be the way to go. All right. So there you have it. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's talk me. That's right, me. I'm a Poke-maniac. Now, you may not believe that, but I'm holding a goddamn Pokeball in my hand to show you just how serious I am. I love Pokemon. Have my entire life, man. 13 years old, I remember getting packs of Pokemon cards. My friend Chris Fortuno, shout out Chris Fortuno, my good friend, my old buddy from Las Vegas. I used to sleep over his house every friggin' weekend. And man, did we have fun. Going, all week trying to get a couple of bucks together so we can buy a pack of Pokemon cards and sit there in the store and just hope that we got a really expensive card so we can then sell back to the card store owner to buy more Pokemon cards. That's what we do. That was the exciting appeal. And we would do that. It was so exciting and so much fun. I'll never forget that. And yeah, as an adult, I've realized that those card store owners knew things about the packs of cards and knew how to bury, uh, knew how to bury or take out the cards, that the packs that would have the really expensive cards in there, because finding out later on that you can actually weigh the packs and find out which ones weighed a little bit more, that had the hollow foils and stuff. It's disconcerting to find that out as an adult, that I probably got ripped off. Unless you see those damn card shop owners open the box in front of you, don't fucking trust them, because they probably took out the packs that had the hollow foils. Yes, that's a real thing. You can weigh the packs and you can find out which ones have the hollow foils in them. It's a true goddamn thing. Google it if you don't believe me. But I digress. That was a huge part of my childhood, Pokemon. And then, watching the show. I still watch the show. My daughter and I, we love it. It's so much fun. We've spent so many hours going through the original series because I love that. It's endearing to me, even after all these years. But the video game, obviously, is what comes to your mind. And when you think about Pokemon, and I'm no different, man. I'm absolutely enamored with these games. I can't stop with them, man. I can't. And it's not even just the regular Pokemon games that always got me excited. I loved Pokemon Snap. I loved Pokemon Stadium. I love those. I love being able to take the Pokemon that I would be nurturing and loving on my Game Boy and then putting him into Nintendo 64 and then play it. Oh my God, I was freaking out. It was incredible. Or the GameCube, whatever it came out on. That was so exciting, man. It was like, I raised you and now I see you in 3D. Now destroy that Weedle, But that was what was so exciting about it. And now we're 7 generations in to the Pokemon life. That means there's been 7 different iterations that have kind of birthed its own subgroup. And now, we're getting ready to see an 8th very, very soon, because we've got the X and Y, we got Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and all that, and those are very exciting. But now they seem to be going back to their roots, and the re-releases of the originals is something that I'm really excited about. The fact that they're going to be updating and re-releasing Blue, Red, and Yellow, it gets me so excited that I can't even tell you. And here's the thing. I wish I had it in front of me. It's actually in my bathroom because that's where it's best suited. I spend a lot of time in there. A Game Boy Color with the original red in it. It's the one I had since I was a kid. It's been a long time. I still have it. Even though my daughter lost the back of the battery casing, the battery flip thing, she lost it. It's gone. I have no idea where it is. I'm very upset because I'm pretty sure that I had one of the early serial number models, and that could have been worth like $150. But now it's worth nothing because she lost the damn backing to it. Don't let your kids play your vintage systems, kids. Trust me. But I'm excited to be able to play these new games or the older versions, the newer versions of the old games on my newer Game Boy systems. But I think what we're all looking forward to, and the fact that Nintendo is now putting out games on their cell phones, I talked earlier about the ability to play games on cell phones and how it's not overly appealing to me. If there is one game that could really change that for me, it'd be Pokemon. If Pokemon was on my cell phone, I would never put my cell phone down. That's how if you want Dave's money, do that. That's how you'll do it. So to end the show, to close it out, let's talk about my favorite Pokemon games of all time. Let's start with X and Y, the latest iteration, man. I had so much fun with those games. I thought they were fantastically done. And yes, they are virtually the same game every time. But it's one of those things where if it's not broke, don't fix it. And the only time in my life that I really had a problem with a Pokemon game was Black and White. And I hated the way that the visuals looked. I can't even tell you why. I just never really played it. But X and Y I really did. And then kind of in that same realm, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire which had the same type of dynamic with the Mega Evolution and all that. It was just an exciting new dynamic that you get to see. And that's why that's up there in my top 3. I'm only doing 3 today because that's all I care about. And X and Y cracked that because of that. It kind of brought in this new feeling and kind of changed. Now, it's just an extra feature that really just superpowers your Pokemon, but it certainly gave you a rush, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. So that, for me, did a huge thing. So I love that. Next, come on. Blue and red. Or red and green. Oh, my God. Red and green. Red and green. That was the thing, but I forgot blue came out a little bit after. The original 2 launches were red and green. And then, of course, blue. We're talking about the pocket monsters, red and green. Oh, yeah. I ain't fucking around. I'm going old school. But let's talk about red and blue and why that was very important. Because it was the originals, man. And I still don't think it's really been done better. It's just something. The fact that you could still pick it up and play is kind of what makes it so endearing. And yeah, gold and silver and everything. That in the early days, even with ruby and sapphire and gold and silver, they were just the exact same copy of red and blue, and that was it. It didn't really add much to it for a very long time. So you can't really get too much better than the originals. So that, for me, that's why they're number 2 on that list. Now, number 1. This might be shocking to some people, but it's probably not. It's the yellow version, the special Pikachu edition, which is the exact same game as all the others, except you started the game with Pikachu. He followed you around outside of your Pokeball, and it made you feel like you were actually Ash Ketchum, and that's what was the appeal to me. I felt like Ash. I was like, I'm Ash. There's Pikachu. I have proof. And the cool thing was, yellow had all the Pokemon in it. Red and green, red and blue, you had to get both copies or have a friend to trade and all that stuff. Yellow, you could catch them all in there, man, and that was exciting. That was exciting because this was a few years later, and it was just so exciting, and it made you just, you had to play it all over again. And the fact that you can do it on your own, it just was like, yay. And so that's what it did, and I'll never forget that. So for me, it's Pokemon Yellow, my favorite Pokemon game of all time. So there you go. I decided to nerd out with you a little bit and share my Pokemon glory. What's your favorite Pokemon game of all time? Or do you hate Pokemon? I'd love to hear from you guys. Let me know what you think right in the chat below. Other than that, that's all I got. Thank you guys for joining me right here on Dave's Save Point. If there's anything that you want to hear me talk about in the realm of video games, hit me up on Twitter at DeadOnDaveV and let me know, because I want to hear from you. Now make sure you're checking out everything that goes on within the channel. We got all kinds of wrestling goodness coming up. More than likely, NXT will not be live tonight. I'm going to do the segment by segment, match by match breakdown and analysis tomorrow. But SmackDown tomorrow night will be live, more than likely. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. We'll see. But make sure you'll... you know what? I might do NXT and then I might do SmackDown. I don't know. I haven't decided which way I want to go. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about that, and I'll take that into consideration. Other than that, like, subscribe, and share. We're now over 1,600 subscribers. Thank you very much for that. It's very much appreciated. That's all I got, though. So get out of here. Go play some video games, man. Have fun with your life. And as always, no matter what you do, if you don't have talent, have talented friends. We'll see you next time right here on Dead on Dave Productions. Keep it copious. Peace.